Good morning. I'd like to call the Finance Committee meeting Thursday, September 24th to order. With your permission, Mr. Lear, I'll run it here since you are you biking the Alps? Is that what you were doing, or you were?
No, I'm at my friend's house in Virginia.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I'll yield the chair to you.
Thank you, sir. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lear?
Present.
Mr. Seroy?
Present.
Mr. Hess?
Present.
Mr. Byrne?
Present.
Ms. Weber?
Present.
Mr. Payton? Ms. Parker?
Present.
Mr. Kinzinger? Mr. Zenz? Ms. Haas?
Present.
Mr. Swanson?
Present.
Ms. Zucolo?
Present.
Mr. Dunnell?
Present.
Mr. Miller?
Present.
Mr. Hunter?
Present.
Mr. Wheeler?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. No public comment? No public comment. I do not read other people's public comment. They can call in and say it themselves. Presentations, none today. Approval of the minutes. Let me see if there's any other random reports. No offense to anybody. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of August 27th, the county treasurer's report, the collector's report? Do we have to roll call the resolutions?
We usually combine and approve.
Combine and approve them all. The monthly resolutions, and that would be it. Is there a motion to approve all those so we don't have to have multiple roll calls?
Mr. Chairman.
I'll go with Mr. Dunnell and Mr. Hunter with the second. Let's do roll call for everybody, please.
Mr. Lear?
Aye.
Mr. Seroy?
Aye.
Mr. Hess?
Aye.
Mr. Byrne?
Aye.
Ms. Weber?
Aye.
Ms. Parker?
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger?
Aye.
Ms. Haas?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
Ms. Zucolo?
Aye.
Mr. Dunnell?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Hunter?
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We're going to delay the finance department right now because we're tweaking some numbers on the health insurance renewal upstairs. We'll just kind of skip over that, and the administration department, they'll be down in a few minutes. Moving on, Nick, you're up. Treasurer's office.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning. Well, I like this order, let me just say. It would be okay if we kept it this way. I just have a few things to say. Number one, today, and for those people that are listening out online, voting starts today. Obviously, most people know that, but it's important, so go vote. We were worried at the beginning of this tax season about what collection would be, and I think rightly so based on what was going on and what's still going on. As of today, we are about 3.5 million more than last year in terms of raw numbers. We're in the 189 million range, and we're under 1% difference between 18 and 19. And if I look back at other years, that's really a negligible difference. So I guess the upshot of that is we've collected this year the same as we've always collected. So COVID-19 hasn't hurt us, and I think that's a testament to the residents of our county, because I know for a lot of people it's a struggle, and so I salute them. And I also wanted to mention our collector banks this year really stepped up because of the safety issues of paying in person. Midland States Bank collected over $17 million for us. Municipal was over $7 million, and People's Bank was over $6 million. And I've said it many times, and I'll say it every time, I guess. Without these banks, we would need at least 2 more full-time people during tax time. So I appreciate that. October 2nd is our surplus auction, which normally happens around the 16th of September. It's delayed because of COVID. If anybody knows what this is the book These are the things that the trustee, the properties the trustee sells, and normally is attended by near 500 to 1,000 people. Obviously, that can't happen. So they're doing a sealed bid auction. And the books are available for purchase at my office. And the sealed bids must be turned in by end of day October 2nd. And all the forms are included in the book, and the forms are also on my website at KankakeyCountyTreasurer.com. A couple other dates. Delinquent notices will go into the mail on the 9th of October, and our tax sale right now is scheduled for November 13th, but that may change as well because of COVID. We're looking right now, it usually takes place in the chambers here, but based on the number of people, that won't be able to take place here. So we're looking at potentially Quality Inn or other places nearby, but I'm told by the trustee that they may have a different idea with what to do. Lastly, I'd like to mention by name Shakira Parker, Diane Spade, Sarah Raymond, Donna Casino, and Caleb Kent. Those are the first three women are the full-time employees in my office, and the second two are part-timers. And without them running the office, it wouldn't run the way it does, and they handle tax time seemingly with ease. I know it's not easy, but they make it look easy, and I want to just recognize their hard work. And with that, I'd be glad to take questions.
Mr. Kinzinger first.
Yeah, this is a question I ask once every year. At this time of the year, we have significant funds in local banks, and I assume you're following up with collateralizing those.
Well, and you do ask that, and that's a absolutely great question.
I think it should be a matter of record.
Of course. And what Mr. Kinzinger is speaking to is the amount of money that we have in the banks need to be collateralized by law.
I didn't know that.
This year, unlike any other year since I've been here, we have distributed every penny that we've gotten in as soon as we could. So we're not keeping money in banks, and actually at this point, we have very little in the bank. Gosh, we're under 100,000, I think. We have sent all of our money out to the taxing bodies.
Well, the rates are so low.
Yeah, well, I will give you the rates in case you have over 300,000 to invest. The rates are a whopping 0.05. So 5/100ths of 1%. So you could, if you wonder why pensions are having a hard time, I think that's your answer. Any other questions? Mr. Hunter?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. You referenced the receiver banks and the amounts they've been able to collect. Would it be appropriate, for government to convey appreciation to the bank presidents or the CEOs of those particular banks? I know you referenced your staff members regarding their performance during the tax period. That means it's difficult, to deal with people who are coming in to pay their taxes. I was wondering if it would be appropriate at a full county board meeting that the CEOs of those respective banks that you reference, as well as your staff people, be here to receive some kind of kudos or some kind of certificates of appreciation for the due diligence and the hard work they've done. Oftentimes, we don't convey appreciation to the private sector or our employees regarding the work they do. Having been in public service for some period of time, I understand that, the meaning of a public body saying thank you. So that may be something you guys want to consider.
To your point, before you joined the board, there was a time when we had at least the top three banks come in, and we did honor them. But obviously, Was it last year?
It was last year.
I would obviously defer to the full board, but if there were a resolution passed, I would be glad to hand deliver that to all presidents
Or
of the
even,
banks.
yeah, or even have them physically there to see their
Sure.
legislature.
Because I mentioned the top 3, but as you know, there are probably 12 that we deal with.
There's only one that doesn't, pretty much, right?
There is only one bank in this county that won't take taxes, and I have, well, I'll leave that unsaid. PNC does not take taxes. They also don't hold any of our money, the money I control.
Thank you.
Yes, so, thank you.
Any other questions? Anyone on Zoom? All right. Well, thanks, Nick. Appreciate it. And I do want to note that when Nick got that money out, it helps all these other taxing districts. He said, you know, we are okay this year, but that's the property tax revenue stream. All the other revenue streams from all these different governmental entities is very strained. The other revenue that they get is what's really been affected. So, up next would be the Sheriff's Department. Mike Downey. You're up. Oh, he's coming. Yeah.
Here come the police.
I showed up early. Good morning. I don't really have anything of that's out of the ordinary on the report which you were mailed. Other than if you heard the Criminal Justice Committee, there was a number that was inaccurate as far as the monthly revenue, which on the report I'm looking at is correct because we changed it, but under number 1 of the fiscal year 1920 August, it had indicated that we had $6 million in revenue in August, which we can only wish, but that was actually $688,000. So there was an added 0 or an added number in there that made that 6 million. Other than that, our transports are picking up a little bit as we start moving inmates and detainees back and forth to Chicago again, because their courts are opening up, much like ours, which have been open up since June, really, or July, I guess. Other than that, I mean, everything is pretty self-explanatory, I think, unless there's any questions on it.
Any questions on the sheriff's report? Questions about trends or anything? Anything? Okay.
I have 3 other things. One, we had mentioned in criminal justice about vehicles for animal control. I had indicated I would bring that information here, but I think it's probably more appropriate to bring it to the Community Service Committee to then forward here, since animal control does report to the Community Service Committee. Our vehicles there are old, high mileage, and are again costing us money, and so we have gone out and got some prices, some state bid prices of some vehicles that we will bring to community service, who will then hopefully bring forward that back to the finance and then onto the full county board. So
In case anyone's wondering, I did talk to the sheriff on this. Those are animal control funds that'll be used to purchase those vehicles.
yeah, we're not
coming to the general fund.
Yes. COVID. So, as I've talked before, we are still COVID-free in the jail, which, quite frankly, I'm a firm believer in. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. And, you know, I think we're a combination of both. I think the jail staff has done a great job. We got out in front of this early. I will tell you, however, and share in case, because we all know the social media accuracy sometimes comes into question, because we know stuff that's put on social media isn't always that accurate. I know, it's hard to believe. Hard to believe. But it seems like once it's on social media, all of a sudden it becomes gospel, which is probably the most aggravating thing about social media, but that's a whole nother story. So back on September 8th, we transported an individual back to the Metropolitan Correctional Center. He was a federal inmate. This is September 8th now. And the MCC, the Metropolitan Correctional Center, does what's called a rapid test. Now, we've all heard about the accuracy of these rapid tests and how accurate they are, or in 50% of the cases aren't. And so on September 8th, this individual went back to the MCC, apparently was rapid tested. And then on September 16th, 8 days later, they called us and said, oh, by the way, so-and-so tested positive for COVID. Now, this individual had been in our building for, I think, close to 90 days. So, of course, it was instant panic from our end because he was housed in a general population area. And as normally happens in jail settings, word got out from this individual's family back to another family of an individual who was back housed in our building in the same area. And then miraculously, multiple inmates all of a sudden came down with symptoms of COVID. Shortness of breath, you name it, whatever the symptoms are, they change every day. And although I certainly don't not take this serious, it is serious, but we all know that we have a list an arm length long of COVID related symptoms. So our medical department made the decision to test, and we went back through, it was kind of the jail's version of contact tracing, as sometimes we move individuals around as well. So we went back through, and on Monday, we tested 47 inmates in the Jerome Combs Detention Center. Fearing the worst, normally you think one of those people are going to test positive. And Wednesday we got the results back, and every one of them was negative. So credit to the jail staff. Shame on social media for saying that we've got COVID in our jail, blah, blah, blah. That inmate at the MCC has since been retested with a regular test and tested negative. So, it just goes to show you, the numbers that we have out there, and I'm sure we can talk about COVID for the next 5 hours and never agree on anything, but, the tests, the accuracy of the tests come into question so often, and God only knows how that affects our numbers statewide. It's absolutely crazy. So, like I said, credit to the jail staff, and even credit going back to 2003, when we designed this jail. We have the ability, which most jails don't, we have the ability to literally quarantine people who, new arrests who come in, we're able to quarantine them before we place them in general population with the inmates or detainees who've already been there. So that's part of the design back in 2003. It's been very, very, very beneficial for us, and has been probably one of the main reasons that we've been able to avoid COVID. So just thought I'd pass that along in full transparency in case you see anything out there on social media regarding COVID at the jail. So any questions on that?
Any questions from the group, please? And thank you, by the way, for approaching it like a professional. Mr. Hunter.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Sheriff Downey, regarding SOPs, standard operating procedures, how often do you test your staff, correctional staff, and staff that are located at Jerome Combs?
We don't.
You don't?
Unless they exhibit symptoms.
Okay. And are your employees, as we come in the building downstairs, are your guys, are your personnel tested at all?
Yes, every one of them. Okay. Every one of them walking in the building gets their temperature taken, although, again, with all the goofy changes in COVID from the CDC, those rules change every day. I mean, now they come out and say temperatures don't mean anything anymore. So, but we're still doing it because it's worked for us. And we have, and the chairman knows this, and I think some of the board members know this, as a department, you know, one of the things that is sometimes prevalent in corrections, sometimes police, is sick call. And granted, I mean, our guys are in contact with people coming off the street, our guys on the street are in contact with people, you know, and you get into immune systems and all that, but sometimes sick time is used significantly in law enforcement. And we have fought for years to tell people when, you know, if you don't feel real good, but you feel good enough to work, come to work, and if you feel bad enough, we'll send you home. So 20 years, 25, 30 years of doing that, now we're to the point where if you don't feel good, don't come into work. So we've kind of gone backwards on that, but you know, it's been a benefit for us because we have avoided COVID.
Well, let me say this, that, you know, I know you and the chairman have a unique relationship and a viable and a professional relationship. And I appreciate, no, you do. You know, a new guy being here, I noticed that. I'm probably more objective than anybody, you know, but based on the empirical evidence that you provided to us, I mean, nothing has transpired. What do you, yeah, knock on wood, Formica, whatever. If you had to give me a response, or the public a general response, what are you doing to safeguard our workforce and our visitors at Jerome Combs?
So we still don't allow visitors at Jerome Combs. We still have no visitors coming in. We are taking, anybody who comes in the jail takes temperatures. And there's a, you know, any new arrest that comes in, there is a, what we would call a COVID questionnaire, you know, the standard questions that you probably get asked if anybody goes to the doctor. I just had a physical on Monday, and you know, you get 10 questions about, have you left the state? Have you been around anybody who's tested positive for COVID? Have you, you know, on and on and on. So there is a questionnaire that we utilize. Our staff, we do take their temperatures every day. But I've said all along, and you guys have probably heard me say this, if COVID gets in our jail, more than likely, it's probably going to come from an employee, because we have 120 or so correctional staff, 50 support staff at the jail, 50 deputies. There's a good likelihood. So it's imperative that our staff be cognizant of how they're feeling when they come in contact with it on the street. We have had, I believe, 3 deputies test positive for COVID, but it's not something that they got. From what I've been told, they've all gotten it through family members. It's going to happen. I mean, it just is.
That's what happened at Shapiro.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how, I mean, staff brings it in. So we're very cognizant of that. I believe we've had 2 or 3 correctional officers who've tested positive, but they've all been, it's all been through staff, and they've been very good about calling, saying, I have these symptoms, I'm going to the doctor to get tested, and they get us their results fast, and then they go through their process of recovery.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Good.
That's all I got.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Moving on, we're going to, there's auditors not here today. The Finance Department, Steve McCarty, we're circling back to you, Steve. Anita, I don't know if you guys want to come up here now, and just because you're going to be next after this, but you can sit up in the front row or whatever. So it's up to you guys while we run through this. Maybe Anita up here, and then Mike and Aaron in the rows here, just sit 6 feet apart. Yeah, we'll just get set for when you get up here. Steve, I guess you have the mic.
Can everybody hear me?
A little bit distorted. Say it again.
All these
A little bit
Steves.
distorted.
Yeah. Testing.
Testing again.
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. We'll start out with the normal tax, if you would, tax reports, basic income reports. If you've had a chance to look at them. Entertain any questions. For the most part, I'm pleasantly surprised with the use tax continues as nothing's happened. Income tax has now turned positive, where we saw negative trends for the year. We're still watching, the sales tax real close. We're trending down, but we're only 1% off from a year ago, only almost break even there. So, so I think it's all, positive news, considering everything that we were suspecting or what could have happened when all this started. So I don't know if there's any specific questions on those, otherwise I won't spend too much time on it this morning. No questions there. We'll move on to cash flow. I don't have a whole lot because this is probably the month where I'll smile the most because we have the most cash in the bank right now. That estimated for September of 20 is very close to what we have right now sitting in the bank. So second distribution went out. That is a real number for the property tax distribution in September, and then we'll finish updating September once we close out. But we're working on the future, working on what next March and April, May will be. At this point, with budget information that we're going to be discussing here soon, what we'll be putting together. So not a lot to talk about right now on the cash flow side, but if anybody has any questions, we can certainly discuss that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Stephen, let me pose this question. This fiscal year which we're in presently, COVID hadn't hit us. Can you guys think of any expenditures, any projections as to what we might incorporate in the next year's budget that we hadn't incorporated prior to COVID? In other words, there are certain things that have transpired which have impacted our fiscal situation. And of course, there's CARES money, federal money, and all that stuff that we've been able to receive. But are there any things in the budget that we need to incorporate next fiscal year based on our COVID experience? Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Well, the things that come to mind really have direct response to COVID. The front door, we've added a couple of maintenance personnel for extra cleaning. The major changes at this point, well, I wouldn't say that they're major, but what we're watching is trend and stuff. Sales tax trend, tax trends, purchasing trends, it's more economical in a sense. The bed rental, those types of things that have been affected by COVID, and how long it'll affect, going forward. So not a lot on the expense side. We're fortunate to, be able to get reimbursement, but for the most part, we're still running pretty as normal, if you would, true to form right now, going forward.
I would like to mention, though, it wasn't like COVID didn't affect us. We had almost a $3 million surplus built into the budget, and that evaporated. And it would have been a lot more if we wouldn't have controlled costs in other areas. So we had a minimal impact on sales tax and property tax and those types of things, but other revenue streams were severely impacted. The good thing is we were able to adjust on the expense side to compensate for that, so we could tread water this year. We didn't go down, and if we do, it'll be marginal in the tens of thousands rather than millions, like we have seen on this board over the past. I don't even want to think about it anymore. We're not going back there. So
yeah, nightmare.
Yeah, it was. Would that be an accurate representation, Steve?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So you're, continue, I'm sorry?
Yeah, if there's no other questions on cash flow, then we can move to the claims. We have 2 claims today for approval. Verizon Wireless and Smith Kelling Dextranome.
Move to approve.
There's a move to approve by
Second.
Mr. Hunter, a second by Mr. Dunhill. Any questions? And it's on both of these, gentlemen, both bills to pay?
Yes.
Is that correct, Mr. Dunhill?
Yes.
All right, if there's no questions, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Lear,
Aye.
Mr. Seroy,
Aye.
Mr. Hess,
Mr. Hess, you're muted.
He's muted.
Well, there he goes. You there, Roger?
Kelly, mine was an aye.
Okay.
thank you. Mr. Byrne,
Aye.
Ms. Weber, Ms. Parker,
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger, Ms. Haas,
Aye.
Mr. Swanson,
Aye.
Ms. Zicolo,
Aye.
Mr. Dunno,
Aye.
Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Hunter, Mr. Wheeler,
Aye.
motion carries.
Steve?
The next one would be the monthly claims report. Anyone has any questions?
Is there a motion to approve the monthly claims?
Parker.
Mrs. Parker, Mr. Kinzinger with the second. If there's no questions, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Lear,
Aye.
Mr. Seroy,
Aye.
Mr. Hess,
Aye.
Mr. Byrne,
Aye.
Ms. Weber, Ms. Parker,
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger, Ms. Haas,
Aye.
Mr. Swanson,
Aye.
Ms. Zicolo,
Aye.
Mr. Dunno,
Aye.
Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Hunter, Mr. Wheeler,
Aye.
motion carries.
Cure grant update.
Yeah, we have the Cure Grant on there twice. The first one I'll update on the financial side. I included a copy of the check that we received for the first submission, $517,000. So that was a nice check. A lot of work on the deposit side as far as where it's getting distributed back to, but that's a nice check that we shared with everybody. And then we're up to approximately 640,000 of the 1.1 million that we were allocated at this point that we're aware of. So so the number's slowly growing. So hopefully we'll be able to receive some reallocation next year for ongoing related expense that we'll have. So that's just the fiscal update. I don't know if anyone has any questions on the dollar amounts.
It's December 31st is the cutoff on expense?
Yes.
Is that, do you know if it's the cutoff on submission as well, or do we have into January to submit?
Yeah, you know, on a lot of the expense, they're looking for, you know, cash checks, proof that we paid it. So we're working with everyone that has ongoing expense, trying to make sure we time it out right so that we can get that reimbursement within this year's allotment.
Okay. The important thing is the expense happens this year, goes into this budget year, the reimbursement. And that's what we're shooting for. So we don't have it all show up in December and that's next year's budget year. I'm not sure we know, but there's no way that we could not have that information into next budget year, into next year, because it'll take a while for the checks to get back and everything. So we'll check though. We can make sure on how it looks, on how the paper or the law looks. FY20 update.
Yeah, in your packet there's a general fund summary sheet providing you with some, at least the trend that we're seeing. We've gone through FY20 about 4 times now. We're seeing break even at this point a little bit better than break even, you know, so that there's a chance as close as we are to break even that we could be positive, we could end up negative with the flow. But early on, if everybody remembers, the $1 million on the fund balance conversation that we had, as you can see, you know, we ended 2019 with $1.5 million fund balance. You know, we budgeted in to grow that fund balance this year. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen with the changes from the pandemic. But I think break even is, I think is pretty good right now. If break even can be good, if you will, considering, you know, everything that could have happened and that we were worried about that, you know, may happen. So sustaining is, I think, a good thing. And right now, as we head into the, you know, next year's budget, we're, you know, trying to do the same as in a sustaining discussion. So so this is about where we're at. So every time I've calculated, it's come up very close to break even. So I think it's a positive at this point, you know, considering all the factors that are involved and all the variables involved that we've seen.
Any questions about that? If you listen to most other governmental units, they're not saying that.
Amen.
Yeah, no, I don't hear a whole lot of this.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, considering what we've been through, you know, break even can be a positive conversation as well, considering the economic downturn, you know, that we did experience. So I believe it's all very positive. If there's any other questions with the FY20, then we can move on to the FY21 budget discussion. I also included a screenshot that picked up the majority of the information from a IGFOA webinar I was on. An economist was discussing the gross domestic product, and you know, the gray line on the graph is what the 2019 GDP was. So if you look at going back to the economy, going back to what it was before the pandemic, there's a couple of estimates that they're looking at anyway. And, you know, if there's another stimulus, you know, they're looking at potentially fourth quarter of 2021 or even in the third quarter of 2022 if there is no stimulus. So I only share that with you, you know, as far as information that's out there and how long will this go on, you know, will we get back to normal? How fast will we get back to normal? All those questions. So it's just you know, I'm looking and trying to find pieces of information that I can, you know, that we can use to potentially go with. So we're looking at another year and a half potentially from an economic standpoint, you know, as far as how that relates directly to our budget and flow, you know, from the economists saying that, you know, this could go on for a little bit. And so, yeah, as we look into the 21 budget, it's pretty flat. And how long do we need, you know, to sustain that, and will it get back to normal, you know, discussion. So I thought that would be a good introduction to what we're working with in the 21 budget. And Chairman Wheeler, if you want to give any highlights at this point, you know, where we're at right now.
Well, just to tie that up, I'm looking at your GFOA page, and would you call that a modified V recovery? It's not quite a U, but it's kind of in the middle. A view? I don't know.
Yeah.
What would you call that?
Well, what's interesting from what they talked about through the whole presentation, you know, they try to refer back to stuff that's happened in history, and there's not a lot of things to go by on what's happened, you know, from a historical standpoint to this. So that's, you know, that's their best guess. You know, there's things recovered quicker, you know, than other times. So they were comparing it to the 2008, 2009 timeframe, you know, and others back in the 80s. It is different, you know, so that's their best guesstimate right now as far as, you know, how this may recover. So.
Okay. And as we talk about, Steve talks about next year, we have to have a budget to present. It's based on the knowns, but believe me, there are contingency budgets based on different factors that could move. So we're gonna do the heavy lifting ahead of time instead of waiting to react and take months to have a plan if some things change or happen or whatever. So just to the board to rest assured, we're not gonna delay. We're gonna have a plan, and then you never know. I mean, a satellite could fall on the county building. I mean, we don't have a plan for that. But I mean, as far as everything else, we're looking at known possible contingencies, and we have to build budget amendments around those throughout the year. So it's kind of our job now, because there's been nothing like this. As far as there is no playbook, there is no manual, there's nothing to look back on some of the things that we're dealing with here. So does anybody have any comments? I guess Steve, we really don't have enough to bring back on the budget right now, but it's flat, and one of the big components was health insurance. So that's why we had to have that this meeting this morning, because we just got our numbers in. So that has a big impact on where we're at. But again, flat is pretty good in these times. We're not going down at current staffing levels and service levels to the public. So with that, do you have anything to add, Steve? Or
just to let everybody know, we're working on it diligently. Chairman Wheeler wanted to have more to you right now, but with the health insurance piece, and we're continuing our conversations with the Sheriff's Department and other departments to make sure we have all those important variables identified, before we set it down in front of you. So we'd like to have more, to you, but this year is so much different. There's so many variables. I'm trying to get the latest, on the sales tax and income tax, and what to call that for next year. We could all probably write a number down, and all of us would probably be right, just because it's so different right now. So we're trying to take all those trends and plug it in. So it's very much in the works, and we'll have it for you soon for review.
we meet with Mr. Lear on this first draft, so he's aware of where we started from, and then obviously what the holes we needed to fill in. So more to come on that. Which leads to the date change thing that you have to mention, Steve, right?
Yeah, for the budget process, there's a 15-day public review. So we need to move the October finance meeting up to the October 27th. So move it up to Tuesday, October 27th.
Tuesday, October 27th. And if you have the calendar on your phone calendar, it'll be updated for you, right? It is already updated. So, so those that have plugged in electronically to the meeting, the calendar, will have it updated on your phone automatically.
I have a general.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And Steve, and probably for all the department heads, how do you guys make a determination as to what kind of soft monies you go after, i.e. grants, foundations, etc., as well as, without eroding the bargaining units, internships with Governor State, KCC, Olivet, U of I, etc.? Who makes those determinations?
Well, I can answer part of that. Is each elected office controls their own actions in that area, so they pursue their own grants. And a lot of times we'll hear about things and just forward an email to a department head.
And you do that?
Yeah, we all have associations we're part of,
Right.
and there's lots of sources of information, and most department heads don't mind redundancy. Sometimes like, oh, we missed that one, we didn't get that, but most of the time, hey, I got that yesterday, and the sheriff sent it to me also, and but hey, that's better to have too much and too little. We also have a guy that works with us here named Ben Wilson, who's continually scouring out there for those types of opportunities, because he's plugged into the Department of Commerce and things we might not normally see or realize that we were eligible for. So he does that for the county, and he does that for other municipalities as a as needed basis. He's a valuable resource for us here at the county.
I was impressed with his verbiage the other day. Yeah. What about the internships?
That's up to each department. Each department does whatever elected officials have their own purview on that. We are pretty open on that. I can't say that we've had a lot of resources for that, and Anita will tell you have to be very careful
About
on the
eroding
work
bargaining units,
well, or giving the type of work that in non-bargaining unit departments. You can't, there's certain things you can have interns do and they can't do. And she's much more versed on that than I am. Because when I had interns in private industry, it wasn't quite the same, let's just say. A lot of coffee was being brought, so. Anything about interns? I mean, it's very specific. You can't have them do certain things.
Right.
Yeah.
We just we don't use them very much in the, well, we haven't used any in the administrative department. Again, it would have to be unpaid because we don't have any budgeted. They use a few down in, really more like a summer intern down in highway as their flaggers. But other than that, there's really not a lot that we use here. Sheriff uses them.
Yep.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Yeah,
Right.
I was thinking in terms of, you know, all of us have been to school, you know, we had directed studies and stuff. You remember you got college credit for that stuff. I was wondering if you guys had developed any coursework, you know, for interns, and they receive college credit for those services they provide to the county.
I believe that's what Sheriff,
Yeah.
I think that's what Sheriff does and State's Attorney.
Yeah, they get school credit through us.
The sheriff, if you couldn't hear on the meeting, sheriff said they get school credit through the sheriff's department. Probably, I would imagine KCC type
Through the universities.
universities? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, ISU, Western Illinois, I mean, Governor State, all
Okay.
that.
Okay.
But that's only secular though to him, and I'm just saying there should be something you may want to take a look at for the other departments as well too, meaning those other ones, Sheriff's Department, Treasurer, rest of them, Lori, Jim Rowe, all of
Right.
them.
It's difficult to do that, and I see where you're going with that. Much like a policy manual, elected department heads are exempt from the county's policy manual. Each department is its own policy, is its own decision-making.
Yeah.
So we can create a framework, and most of the time, people participate within that. So I agree with
That's
what
what
you're
I'm saying.
saying. Yeah,
That's what I'm
we could do a lot of work, though, and then we have, well, I like mine better. And then you have to look at how much money's there to do it. Not a bad idea, but it's a little bit different because there is no umbrella for everybody, just the structure of counties. So, but yeah, I hear you. Any other, well, we had the date change, the CURE grant submission. Steve, are you gonna share your screen? You had that example? You were gonna show the example of the submission?
Yeah, that's a good thought. Kelly, did you end up with that? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Well, just go through it and mention it then. If you don't have it ready, we won't waste everybody's time, but.
We've been, yeah, I've had a lot going on. But just to let everybody know, we were proud to share that and to receive an email looking for permission from DCO and Crow LLP as part of our CURE submission to be used as a best practice in their presentation for those best practice examples for the rest of the state. So congratulations to Chris Kerner in my office, as well as Joanne and Anita. It was payroll related, and there was also something that we received from the coroner's office and their communication with the health department during the real depths of the COVID when it first started and during the time. So all the departments and the communication and how we're tracking all of it and what we've submitted, there was a part that was chosen as a best practice. So I just wanted to share that. We're proud of that. And one other area that we just received is we're as the fiscal agent for the workforce, local workforce area. We also received, we had no fiscal findings once again for this past WIA fiscal year. And that was also through DCO. So we're proud to share that with the committee.
I just want to make sure everybody understands what that is. There's three counties basically that contract with the finance department to handle workforce development funds for that region. It's federal pass-through. It's not county business, it's not county money, but they pay us to manage that for them because we are the check and balance. We are the check and balance to them for internal controls. You can't have it be like KCC would be a grant recipient of this, but they would also be giving themselves money. So that has to rest without side of, that's why we have it, basically. And the strength of our internal controls and the systems that we deploy doesn't get audit findings. And, you know, there was some situations where there was somebody that was, they had some problems on the workforce board side, what, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, where there was an employee that had done some things that they were fabricating invoices and things like that. That was found and addressed in that system, and they had to have 2 signatories and things like that. But as you say, people are going to steal. It's a matter if your internal controls will find it, and we found it. We were the ones who found it. So it speaks to the level of professionalism, of excellence, of checks and balances that we not only promote but actually engage in internally every single day. And the cures thing is a real big deal, because it not only speaks to the way that all of our departments work together to document this and really take advantage of the opportunity, but also the documentation, the reporting that Steve and his team did. We were spot on how we handled this internally, and we had the checks and balances, and we had, you know, we have the internal controls that everybody wants to see within government. So I just want to mention that while we were making it up as we went along, because this was all new, as the kids say, we were killing it. So I'm just saying, you know, it was really nice to see, to be recognized for that. Mr. Lear.
I think it would be appropriate, particularly the CARES notice should be presented on the agenda of the full county board. Can that be accomplished?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think you're right. Spot on. We should do that. We'll make Steve stand up here in front of everybody. So he loves that. No, it is good though, and it's not a little deal. It's a big deal to have what we did as our internal processes be used as an example for all government in the state of Illinois that's submitting a CARES grant. It's a real big deal. So thank you for that, Steve.
You know,
Mr. Hunter.
oh,
I got my Steves mixed
with
up.
so many Steves here, McCarty, Lear, yours truly. You know, I'm almost overwhelmed, and I was just mentioning to the recorder that maybe just a new kid on the block, that all of this positive stuff that's being articulated this morning, I mean, it's amazing. I'm not sure if you put that stuff on Facebook or what, if there's a county newsletter. I mean, you guys could probably say, we have a story to tell to the community, to our citizens. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff happening. I'm not sure if we're telling our story about how we're performing.
Yeah, it's a continuation of a 4-year problem we have. There's a lot that has been amazingly good here, historic in the turnaround of the finances.
You know, those numbers.
The word hasn't got out.
Yeah, the numbers are amazing, which the treasurer talked about and Steve mentioned. I mean, people need to know that what we've been able to do as a county government in light of COVID, you know, it's amazing, simply amazing.
Yeah, we'll hold off on the COVID until after next year. Mr. Kinzinger with the sage words of wisdom. But no, I mean, we were $15 million in the hole roughly. If you counted the money we were borrowing from banks and ourselves and our cash debt to start every budget year on a roughly $28 million budget at the time. You were living hand to mouth every day, and it was rough. Steve actually has color back in his skin, you know, because he was walking around like a ghost for a couple years. I'm serious, because he knew, we knew it was not going to be good, and it was a lot of hard work, and it wasn't the board. It was the board with the department heads and the employees and labor all got together to fix it, and that's how you do it.
Tell the story. That's you know, facts don't lie. So.
Yeah. Wish Springfield would watch this sometime. All right, Steve, anything else?
No, I'm good, thanks.
All right, moving on then. Anita, what was that, Speckman? Yes, sorry. County Administrator report?
Actually, I'm going to turn it over really to Aaron Bickers with Blue Cross Blue Shield and Mike Lynch, our insurance broker. I'm going to pass out a few new sheets to everybody here. For those of you on Zoom, we were late to the meeting because numbers were changing already at 9:10 this morning. So if you could take the comparison sheet and just scratch notes, hopefully that will help. And for those of you here in the room, I'll give you some new revised worksheets with new revised numbers.
So what are these here?
There's been updates to that made this morning, yeah.
So we should.
And you're gonna get some new papers right now in the room. Those on Zoom will email the revised numbers out to you after the meeting is over.
So we can discard this here?
Yes, yeah. You may want to reference it for like what
need
it
me to
was
say
versus
anything
what it
else?
is now, you know, if you wanted to check and see what we've done this morning, but give us just a moment. No. You have an extra for me? Thank you.
Anita, a journalism intern for the newsletter, Facebook. That's all.
A marketing professional wishes he had time.
Yeah.
All right, you guys got the floor, Mike.
Alrighty. This year's Blue Cross
Hold on just a second, I'm sorry, I didn't turn you on, apologize.
This year's Blue Cross Blue Shield renewal came about in comparison to last year a little later, because last year we switched from United Healthcare to Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois. And in the first year of these types of programs, the underwriters like to hang on to the renewal as long as they can, so that they can collect as much data as they can, which is good and bad, I suppose you can say. But this year, we got this yesterday. And so we've been working on it over the last 24 hours. So for some of you who weren't on the Finance Committee, I'll go through a few items that we have found relative to the change, and then I'm going to ask Aaron Bickers to comment about the numbers from Blue Cross. But in any regard, when we changed from United Healthcare to Blue Cross, one of the things that did change was that we lost the ability to have with Blue Cross and HMO. There is nothing here in Kankakee comparable to what they had in their program. And so we had a new 4-plan program with Blue Cross Blue Shield. The network comparatively is excellent when you look at it compared to any program in the marketplace, which is an interesting term because there are not that many players in the marketplace for large groups anymore in Illinois. The Affordable Care Act reduced the number. And so when we go looking for quotes, we've got United Healthcare and one or two other companies potentially, but generally 2 carriers. This year, by just a phone call basis, we didn't have any problems relative to claims with employees calling in. I can say honestly that it just didn't happen. Now, were there some claims that didn't get paid right? I believe so, but they're firmly or quickly fixed. Blue Cross has an excellent history of paying claims, and as I said, their network is very good. One of the things that did occur because of the loss of this HMO was that we had of 4 plans, one $1,000 deductible plan, and a variety of people, because Blue Cross provided to us what is called a transition credit last year, went into Plan 3. And as I come about to the renewal dollar amount, you'll see that the majority of people, I think around 87%, moved from different plans into Plan 3, which is a $1,000 deductible plan. As I said, we got a hold of the renewal yesterday, and the renewal started itself at 11%. Throughout the day yesterday, we had discussions about the underwriter's assumptions, and had worked it down with the underwriter's approval to 6.5% by about 7 o'clock last night. This morning, we came in and there was another offer made to us, and that offer was that if we would move over the current VSP vision plan to Blue Cross Blue Shield, who uses the iMed network, they would give us another 0.5%, and we asked underwriting to give us another 0.5%, which reduced the overall renewal to 5.5%. And so that's where we're at right now. That's assuming we move the voluntary vision, and my take on that is the savings, the 0.5%, and Aaron can comment on this, and its value is worth more in terms of the medical discount than anything in the discussion, to a network and a program that is equal in stature. And I'll show you in a moment, there's a comparison we'll give you after we're done with the medical. But Aaron, if you would, let's just go through the spreadsheet and some of the numbers, and you can make commentary.
Sure, and we're going off of this spreadsheet,
Yes,
correct?
right.
Okay. Do you want me to add some commentary? Is that okay
Yes,
prior to that? There's a couple things. I know that COVID's been mentioned, so a lot of our projection models right now through underwriting are up in the air. We know that there's been some deferred services, but they're gonna still happen. They've just been deferred. We actually have seen potential deferred services in the medical side, but an increase across our book of business on the pharmacy side, while our members are obtaining 90-day scripts or going out and getting their prescriptions more often, trying to get those taken care of, at least that way. We are starting to see the medical spike up. The group overall, though, is running very well. We have no high cost claimants right now, and let me remind you of the pooling level for the county is at 105 this year. Based off of the year over year 20 to 21, we are seeing a 4% increase in membership. So that's a very positive thing. Membership is increasing approximately 16 people off the year over year. So with membership increasing, we also do anticipate an increase in claims. That's how that works, a little bit higher to offset. Once again, though, we have no high cost claimants so far within the renewal period, and let me remind you that renewal period runs for this group right now because of when we have had you. It runs from January 20th to May of 20. That's good and bad.
Could you repeat that again?
Sure. It's January 20th to May of 20, and that's on a 3-month incurred projection from underwriting. So what that means is we have this little.
Aaron, I'm sorry, could you talk into the mic so everybody can hear? Yeah, sorry about that. We got people on here and it's not broadcast.
I apologize.
Okay.
I could hear myself now better. I'll lean in instead of looking. So it's on a 3-month incurred basis. So basically, if you look at that, that's a short amount of period that we're using the projection. Once again, due to the increase in enrollment, we are increasing the pooling level size from 105 last year, or this year currently in 2020, to 110,000. With UHC, the group had one high cost claimant over that 105 or their high cost claimant threshold. A couple other positive things. Based off the group's utilization from January to August 31st, you guys are obtaining a 59.7% average discount based off your utilization just by being with Blue Cross Blue Shield, and 98.6% of utilization is paid as in-network. So very positive things going on. One other comment regarding Mike's before I kind of jump into the overall performance is the vision with the 0.5% is based on our package pricing. What we and that 0.5% is on a perpetual basis, so it'd be every year as long as the group renews the medical and the vision, you will be given 0.5% off of the medical. It doesn't come off right at, but as your account manager, I'll take it off at the end if it renews. And that 0.5%, just to give you perspective, is right roughly about $25,000. In the renewal, I had already kind of mentioned the 3-month incurred periods from January to May. You guys, we did a waiting period from the prior of 65% to current period, 35 to prior, which is your UHC period. The group is 100% credible, so we're using 100% of your experience, none of our book of business.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Seroy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, you know, and not having these things in front of me is a little difficult to keep track of, but I think I'm getting the gist of it. Our experience went down this year. Is that, did I hear that correct?
Your experience potentially with smoke and mirrors went down based off of some of the COVID, based off the experience periods that we're utilizing versus what UHC went down. Your experience pharmacy went up, medical went down, but once again, that's kind of not a true reflection because of the COVID months that we have in here. I can tell you with, based off of the data I have for June, July, and August, which wasn't used in the renewal, we are seeing that starting to go up. What we're anticipating is a lot of these services, even though we do see a utilization down, a lot of these services are deferred services, which means that you're still going to have these members that maybe put off that outpatient surgery because of COVID. It's still going to come down the lines. There are some services that will not be reoccurring, such as that child that got kicked in the soccer game. You know, that may not happen, but there are a lot of services as inpatient, outpatient, and professional that are deferred services that we see coming down the pipeline already now. Does that answer your question?
Compared to 2 years ago or 3 years ago, our experience has been coming down for the last 3 years, correct?
I don't have that information in front of me. What I have and what
Anita,
I know.
do you know that?
I don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay.
I can tell you our
think
high
that-
claimants are way down.
That's the
Yeah.
biggest.
That's the big one.
Correct.
That's the number that jumped out at me.
Right.
You know, at the end of last year, we had, I believe, 10 or 11 claims over $50,000.
Right.
This year, the number is well below that. I think there's 2 on the plan that had claims above $50,000.
And let's just be honest here that, you know, we all know that the medical field has taken a big hit from COVID, and their operations have, even in our little community, have taken financial hits. But this is where our providers trying to make that money back up. I'm a businessman. I understand the numbers of the bottom lines, and you're going to have to get it from someplace. So at 5.5% increase, I just think they're hitting us where they know they can get it.
Well, if I could say
opinion.
something, in fact, I have a little bit of experience here, no pun intended. These rates are for next year. It's them predicting what's going to happen next year. It's not what happened this year, and I get that. But that leads into my question, rebates. Because of PPACA, Affordable Care Act, if that spreads too big next year, we get rebates back to the county. Is that correct?
Yes, it's
If the
still in the
spread's too big.
Yes.
So if it ends up, they end up making too much money, I'll do air quotes on that, they have to rebate back a certain amount?
To be clear, though, that is based on Blue Cross as a whole in the state of Illinois.
Yes.
Not for our plan.
Not just us.
Not just us,
No,
it's
it's not
everybody.
just you. I think the big thing, my response to the utilization at the 5.5%, right now, just to give you perspective, what we basically do on our medical underwriting is we take today's trend on medical and pharmacy on the current period, which is weighed at 65, and then the prior, which is weighed at 35, combine those and do a 4 trend. This is well below the trend they're basing this off of. Trend right now on, I'm not even going to take the current period because I think it's skewed because of the COVID. It's showing around 22% for trend. That's not correct, but it's so skewed because of the experience on the COVID. So let's even take the prior trend. So last year's trend, prior medical trend was at 5.4, drugs was at 9.5. So having a roughly, what we're seeing for trend is roughly around a 6.5% to 7%. So this is below trend. This is actually saying that your group is breaking even on experience or projections for next year versus this year. Is that?
No, that's that. I get what you're saying, Todd. Does that at least explain?
I understand what they're saying. I really do, but I just nobody's getting a 5.5%. The average person's not getting 5.5% making extra money. You know, and why should we have to pay an extra 5.5% to keep the policy that we've currently got? That's just my argument.
Sure, and it's all driven by cost.
Right.
You know, so if the providers are charging 5.5% more, they're not going to pay that. You know, they're not going to make, you know, and I'm not going to throw it all on doctors and hospitals and everybody like that, but that is
something wrong with
insurance.
the
It's
system.
not a
That's what I'm going to say.
Part of that 5.5%, and let's just, actually it's 6% is what we're projecting out there. That 0.5% is not what underwriting is requesting. That 0.5% is actually coming on for a package pricing discount for the integration of your or for your vision. But even with that 5.5% or 6%, we are seeing a 4% increase on the county's enrollment, plus approximately a 6.6% on claim experience on the ACV. So with that, with higher enrollment, we see a little bit higher utilization. And also, I think that you had a great point that we are in the same boat as even the county or other businesses, where our prediction models are kind of, this is an unpredictable time where we are trying to do a prediction model based off the unknown. We're a conservative company by all means, but basically we are showing an increase in net pay claims and enrollment, which is reflective of the next year's renewal.
Is it a fair statement to say that you know, we meaning all businesses would get a rebate if you guys overestimated what those rates need to be, but you can't come back to us and say, well, we need more money because we underestimated it. You see where I mean? You guys are kind of in a trick bag there a little bit.
Yeah, so it's not a fair statement in the sense of a rebate. What you guys are is you guys are 100% experience rated. So let me answer that in two parts if that's okay, Chairman. Yeah. You're 100% experience rated, which means we actually use your claims for our prediction models, okay? In regards to us asking for more money, if you guys have $1 million over our prediction, you're a fully insured premium prospective rating, which means that you are only responsible for the rates that we provide you. If we pay $5 million in claims over our prediction model, you're still only responsible for this amount. So with answering that, it's kind of, this is our prediction model. We are a conservative company. We cannot ask you for more money, but you are an experience rated account for the following year of, you know, renewal rating, if that makes sense. So.
Is there any, do you have more? I thought you might. I just want to make sure we get
the only other thing I wanted to do was make sure I respect everyone's time here is I wanted to make sure that anyone had any questions on the 4 plan options. There are going to be minor changes within the plans, no changes to the deductibles, but in the wellness side. But Anita has put together a spreadsheet showing the 5.5%, and if there's any questions on those versus the one plan or whatnot, if you wanted to go into that, or
yeah, just a little bit. I do want to touch, you guys should have that, Kelly, those went out this morning by email. Okay, so if you look at the sheet that says, that's the comparison, the sheet that looks like this, for everybody that's on the screen, the Zoomers, and then the ones here in the room, the one that says 1/1/21 moving vision. Moving vision reflects the 5.5%. The one that the Zoomers have is 6.5%, but the point remains the same. If you look at option 1, option 2, and option 4, you see either the 6.5% increase or the 5.5% increase there. Look at option 3. There's either 16% or 15 or 14% increase in the rate. Last year, when we transitioned to Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Mike alluded to this, they gave us a $150,000 transitional credit. We built that into option 3 to bring those rates down. As a result, and if you look in that section ahead where it says number of enrollees 2019 to 2020, what you saw is most of our employees that were in these other 3 plans transition over to option 3, whereby that is now by far our most heavily utilized plan. It's at 87% of our enrollees are choosing option 3. Remember, the rates were I don't know how to were artificially low because we subsidized them with that 150,000.
Okay.
Right, that goes away for next year, and so those employees are going to see a 14% increase in their premium year over year. Now, for 90% of those, 182 who have single coverage per month, the increase is $18, so $9 a paycheck. So when Mike says that we have no complaints, Blue Cross over United Healthcare, I will say that's true. Then the question for our employees becomes, is it worth it to you? I will say that this year, the few questions I had on this didn't get paid, or this is wrong, this continues to be wrong, we can't get that right, they are lagging claims from prior to this year. So another carrier. So that becomes the problem. And then when you see down the little box in the lower left-hand corner of the estimate per month, when you take those rates by the average monthly, what we end up is an annual estimate going from 4.3 million a year to 4.9% or 4.9 million a year, or an increase of approximately $572,000 year over year based on our current enrollment levels. Now, Steve can talk to what he built into the budget. Steve, did you tell me this morning it's about $217,000 in your preliminary budget, your draft right now?
Steve?
Mute.
McCarty?
Unmute. There he is.
I'm here.
Do you think it's about 217, the increase year over year that you built into the preliminary budget? That's kind of what I wrote down, so it's somewhere around there. So what happens is we've got a problem in our preliminary budget where Steve told us earlier that we are flat. Andy told us we're right at break even. Not really. Not based on these numbers right here. These numbers are not included in that preliminary budget. It results in about a $350,000 problem at this point.
Not a little problem. Mr. Kinzinger.
I'm a little confused, and most of this is above my pay grade and experience. So our real issue is that 87% of our employees has chosen option number 3.
Correct.
And option number 3 will cost the county an additional $571,000.
Well, all 4 together will cost.
All 4 together.
Right, yeah. Right. And really the place where it becomes an issue for the most part, right, and 87% of employees are going to see this 15% increase. So that's one issue. And then yes, the issue is, bottom line, it doesn't matter what plan somebody would have chosen, that $150,000 credit from last year is gone. So that, of your 355, you've got 150 that's that transitional credit anyway.
I want to make sure, I just want to make sure I understand and we're clear here, because there's been 500,000, 377, 155. The county's portion of this bill is 75%.
Right.
Okay, so when we go down to the 377 or whatever that
Right.
number was, that's what hits our budget. The other 25% goes to the employees. So we had budgeted for what, 250? 217?
Steve, I said 217, but I might be wrong. Steve can tell us what he had in the budget. I can't remember from our preliminary meeting last Friday.
So total county cost includes employee payments also.
Exactly.
So it's not 571 to
it's
our
not.
budget.
No.
It's
No, it's
75% of that number.
right, exactly. And we planned for 5%.
Gotcha.
You know,
Now
is that
that
we put
helps.
into our projection. So that's why we have that gap of what, $100 and
Yeah,
whatever
okay.
$1,000.
Oh.
So it's not 500.
Yeah.
We're off by
Thank
that
you.
much.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I want to clarify that it's not good, but it's not what it was when we started today.
And
Thank
it's
you.
not what I thought it
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
My question then goes to Mr. Lynch. As our consultant, is this what you think we should be doing and the best that you can do for us?
Right now, it's the best that we can do. I've been given some
Make sure you're
instructions.
in the mic.
Been given some instructions to check some things in the marketplace, and we'll do that. And Blue Cross has done an extraordinary job of getting down to a number that I don't disagree with, if you will. I'm not a underwriter, but we had an underwriter at Clemens and Associates look at this, and he agrees that it is a fair number, but is it fair versus somebody else's number in the marketplace would be a big question. So whether we have time enough to answer that question is my only problem, but we're going to work on that. But other than getting a number that's better, significantly better, then I'd say this is a good number, but I'd like to see that other number.
That's where I'm at.
And I would agree with you, Mr. Kinzinger, doing this a little bit in the past. There is a value to employees of knowing that they're with the best customer service company out there. They're not going to have claims being fought, non-response stuff being denied. I mean, things happen once in a while, but in mass, our employees are much happier than they were before, which means they're not bogging down the phones over here on a daily basis. The network for retirees and things like that around the United States
Right.
cannot be minimized, that necessity. UHC has some issues in other places, especially if we had HMO.
Right.
So you always have to look at the market, okay? But they're for 10, 20 bucks a month difference for our employees. I almost want to get their opinion. I would love to sit down if we have time, because again, with Mr. McCarty's deadlines, we have to approve a budget. So it would almost require a special finance committee meeting to do that. So, you know, this is all new. I mean, I'm thinking on the spot right here because they came in after I was sitting here. It may be one of those things where I ask for approval on the numbers we get right now, and then if the market comes back, then we will have another discussion, maybe with a special finance committee meeting before the full board. Because we have to have something to present to finance at the end of October for the final budget approval. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what I want to do is I would want to engage the employees if it was
Yes.
worth their time.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, yeah, and I agree with Commissioner Kinzinger. It's that maybe there could be a questionnaire, you know, sent out to the employees too with the proposals. Get feedback from them regarding this, because I think candidly there's been a professional presentation here. And I think a lot of us look at this stuff with a jaundiced eye, but I'm pretty impressed in terms of what I've heard. But I'd still, like somebody just suggested, to get some feedback from the employees. There may be something that we haven't seen at this point, but try that. I understand the time constraints regarding Mr. McCarty's responsibilities, but it's worth it. A try.
Sure, and that's why I would say approve this now to go to full board, because it is a fair proposal, would be my recommendation. And if so needed, if we got something else that was economically, structurally viable, bring it back.
Right, and Mike said he's looking for another number too, so.
And I wanted to add something to what I said to Mr. Kinzinger. You know, at 5.5%, I have no problem saying, in looking at other groups this size, in the marketplace, that's a fair number. Oh, I'm sorry, that's a fair number, increase. Trend can be anything that a carrier wants to say it is. As Aaron said, when you look at renewal numbers, assumptions will be made. The COVID number is an unknown number, so whether it's 22% or it's 5% is irrelevant. We'll only know that after the fact. So at this point, I know the marketplace pretty well in terms of what has been done here, and this is about as low as we're going to get it without injuring the group, and this is what I wanted to add.
Right.
Whenever you take something and you go below an underwriter's assumption, the next year, the following year, you take the chance on him or her taking that deficit and moving it forward. And without a lot of fanfare, part of the problem here, Anita just described.
Yeah, we just did.
Exactly.
That's exactly right.
It was a great scenario to help employees, but it was a 12-month picture. Now, we've got another picture going forward that has two things in it. No subsidy, but a trend increase. So all I'm trying to get forward here is, yes, I think they're treating us fair. And one of the numbers that I can't share with you today because we don't have the data is the discount factors that go into this. You'll have heard Aaron say that it averaged around 56%. The other carriers in this marketplace are generally at 53, 54 and a half, something like that. So it is a higher discount rate, but, you know, again, do they have a different number? We can find that out.
I could actually speak to that if that's okay. Our projection model based for next year is a 62.2% discount. So exactly what Mike was explaining, when you take away, it goes somewhere else. So for instance, that network basically reflects, right now if you have $1 for a member and we're taking off, let's say $60, and that member's paying $40, and you go to another carrier that's averaging, let's say, a 50% discount in this area, or 55, that member is going to be responsible for that extra differential between that 55 and that 60. So those dollars are dollars. It's just a matter on where you're contributing them to and offsetting them at. So.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Kissinger.
I would like to make a motion, and I'm going to need help, because at this point, it's over our heads. We have a very capable consultant who I have respect for in the last couple of years, and I like what he just said. And I like what you just said, that we need to maybe do a little more research. We just got these. But at the same time, we got to move something forward. So I move that we accept what has been presented today with the caveat that we rely on the representations and advice of our consultant with input from the administration in terms of how we should proceed. Did that make sense?
No, I think that's relevant. Yeah. Well, if we get to that point, if we get to that point, because if it's not financially viable, then there's no point.
We don't need to talk to employees, right?
Yeah. So I like the way that's put. You can say administration, but I'd change it to Anita.
Okay, Anita.
Because I'm
Ms.
just,
Speckman,
as they say, I'm the gorilla driving the limo. She's the brains behind the outfit.
Ms. Speckman, and rely on her and our consultant to come back with, this is what we ought to do.
And it'll be transparent. If anyone will want to see that at some point, we'd be happy to do it. So I won't call a meeting if it's not necessary, because that's an expense that would be ridiculous.
Right.
Is there a second?
Yeah, that's not a bad macro motion.
Who's the second on Zoom?
Donald.
Aaron Donald with the second.
Yeah.
So we're clear there. I will have one question when we're done voting, just real quick.
I want to comment.
Okay, Anita's has something.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Andy, I got a question for Anita.
Go ahead.
She said that it was 200. I don't have all the papers in front of me, but she said Steve had 217,000 into the budget already for next year.
Increase.
I just
And
took.
then she said the total. the total was going to be 572, and she came up with 800,000. How could that? I mean, without papers in front of me, it's kind of hard to understand what she means by that.
I just took the incremental increase over Steve's draft budget. So I took my estimates right now based on the rates and the number of enrollees in plan comes to I almost need my microscope. Obviously, I need a bigger size of cheaters. 4,903,000, and our estimate for current enrollment is 4.331. That's a 572,000. I just took that minus 217 that's in the budget to say we have a $355,000 problem. I did not take the 75% as opposed to 25%. Steve budget's total number in his budget, right? Steve, did I say that right?
No.
But
I thought our budget reflected what the county's contribution was.
That's what I thought. The budget was just the county's portion.
Steve, am I correct, or?
I'm not hearing.
Steve?
Yeah, I'm going to say it a different way. My draft has had 5% built into it, and that's the net of not only just the county's portion, but also special fund reimbursements, grant reimbursements. There's a lot of activity that goes on with that.
That's fair.
Not to dictate the conversation, I believe that we, should always find the best rate. But I believe we can handle 5.5% if that's the best rate.
Yeah.
Good.
So to really directly answer that, Bones, we do budget kind of what our end of it is after we take out special funds and all of that kind of stuff. So the 500,000 number, or 600, whatever you heard, we didn't take into account employees' contribution and that factor. So,
Okay.
all right.
All right. Thank you.
So, yeah, we have an issue. It's going to take us a little bit to figure out how big that is. But the second thing, I want to make sure that your motion includes moving the vision from VSP to Blue Cross Blue Shield, because that's what gets us to these numbers.
Agreeable to the second? Was that Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Okay. We're good.
Call it.
Roll call vote.
Mr. Lear,
Steve, you mute.
Aye.
Mr. Seroy,
Aye.
Mr. Hess,
Aye.
Mr. Byrne,
Aye.
Ms. Weber, Ms. Parker,
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger,
Aye.
Ms. Haas,
Aye.
Mr. Swanson,
Aye.
Ms. Zicolo,
Aye.
Mr. Dunnell,
Aye.
Mr. Hunter,
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you. My only question was, I see the spread widening a little bit on the, the no HSA versus the PPOs. Do you think that's something that next year we should consider an HRA again?
You want me to personally?
Well, well, it's the both. Well, I don't know where that's going in the marketplace.
I thought about this yesterday, honestly, Andy, in the sense that,
Microphone.
sorry. I thought about it yesterday as when we first got the first picture of the renewal. How do we manufacture something I can't get from the carrier to drive premium down? And then this morning, I thought about it more when Anita brought the subject up of this Plan 3 and, that problem. That can be a quick review. I mean, if we can get a 5,100% plan and see what's going on, yeah, we'll drive that train and see what we can do.
Okay.
I wouldn't take that off the table.
For this year?
Yeah, yeah, why not? And, all we got to do is find a TPA that we can all trust to do a good job. And when I say a good job, not like was done before, because it caused nothing but problems. We have to have submission, we have to have payment, and clear records about how it went out the door. And
it's got to be seamless for our employees.
Right.
And then with technology, that should not be an issue
And
anymore.
when we brought this subject up about what was going on in terms of the problem claims, it's still that stuff
Right.
that was going on. Anyway, Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, you're okay.
One
Well,
other
I mean,
thing,
our claims, the only reason I'm saying that is because the spread's got to be there, but also your utilization has to be down to make it viable.
Yep.
It seems our utilization is down.
Yep.
Now, again, we take a little bit of a risk because it could go up next year and everybody gets those hip
How
replacements.
much do you bite
and then
off?
waiting on, you know, so that's just a open discussion here for the committee.
Right.
There's a lot of levers to pull on
Yeah.
this, and there's possibilities. But everything is going to have an increased cost. I don't know if there's anything that's going to bring us down below that threshold.
one other thing, I don't want to forget this, is, and somebody brought this subject up, United Healthcare was a great reporting company, and there have not been great reports because there's been no data to make the reports. There's been too short of a period of time. We will start to get monthly, what is called Blue Insight financial reports. And over the course of the year, every month you'll have these things to look at and see what has happened. So you'll be able to look backwards of the year and you'll be able to see what has happened and occurred in that month. There's also what is called a utilization report. So we'll turn those out, and not only will Anita have them, she can make them available to you folks as well. So that'll be another avenue that you'll have, as Terry said, it's been kind of void of information, and that's why. We'll get this information to you, and so every month, as you have these meetings, we can go over them and see what's happened.
Okay.
So just FYI.
Sound good, everybody? All right. Thanks for all your hard work, Aaron. Really appreciate it.
You're very
Seriously.
welcome. Thank you,
This is not
guys.
an easy one this year. I'm sure we're not alone.
It's been a difficult year along with everything else. It's good though. We're happy to partner with you guys.
Oh,
Dental.
dental. We have dental.
Yep. There's a Delta Dental sheet in your package.
That's the email that came from
We
Kelly
need to
this
vote on
morning.
the last motion?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Excuse me.
I thought we did. I apologize.
I was waiting for it.
We did vote on it. Yeah. Okay, we haven't voted on the dental. We did vote on the previous motion, on the health insurance.
Yeah.
We did a roll call. She's got it down on her sheet.
Yep.
Dental's not on the agenda, is it?
It's insurance, I think.
It says healthcare insurance renewal.
Well, this renews.
Yeah, I know. We have to talk about it, but we can't approve it here.
Well, that's insurance. Is it a matter of semantics?
We
or
will
what?
put it to the full, it is actually. It's, we have to have it on the agenda, but we can still put it to the full board. We just can't approve it at this committee right now. So we can talk it and make sure have anybody has any questions, do a head nod. We can't vote on it though. It's not on the agenda. Yeah.
I can do this really quickly. Delta Dental has been the carrier of record since 2014. And since 2014, when we put the plan in, it is what is called an administrative services only contract, which means everybody that participates in the plan pays into the plan, and that's what's used for administration and claims costs. This year ends the last 2-year guarantee period, and that the old cost was $5.61 per employee per month. And this year, it's going to $5.77, which is a 2.9%
Microphone.
2.9% increase over the previous 2 years. This 577 also guarantees you a 2-year rate increase. We did get pricing from another carrier, happens to be Blue Cross, and unfortunately, they were at $6.14 versus $5.77. And I would be remiss if I didn't say if there was a significant discount that went with it or an advantage there, we would do something. There is not, because it's an ASO program and the medical plan is a fully funded program, so their underwriter won't allow the bundling discounts to be given. So I recommend staying with Delta Dental. Again, it's a great company, and the employee reception to it has been good.
And to be clear, Mike, while the admin fee goes up, the actual experience rate goes
yes,
down,
yeah,
so they would recommend our rates stay the same.
Yep.
So no increase to
Forgive me.
the rate the employee pays, of which they pay 100%.
Yep. Yeah, 2 years ago, it was $22.94. there's a slight decrease, they said you could apply, but I don't believe that. There's about, what I am told in the dental market, somewhere between 5.5% to 7% trend. So I don't think that we ought to go down, we ought to just stay the same. I mean, and I will say, single rate's $22.28. When I look at the marketplace, a good starting point's always $30. So this experience has been phenomenal. So there's a positive.
Yeah. So head nod, just send that to full board. We need to get it approved. So I just want to make sure we're set on that. And I'm sure there weren't a lot of people that were going out of their way to the dentist during COVID, because I just picture that with hands and faces and, ugh. Sorry, they're staying away.
You gotta wait in the parking lot and they've gotta bring you in.
Yeah, you didn't get that gold tooth.
Hey, been there, done that.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Didn't have your grill put in, right?
No.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, that's, is that it for today then? On insurance? All right, old business or new business for finance. Is there a motion to adjourn, Mr. Hunter? Mr.
moved.
Kinzinger, second?
Wait a minute now. That's my job.
Hey, listen, if you're not here, you don't get donuts or get to make the motion to adjourn, Bones.
Okay.
I surrender.
You surrender? Okay, Mr. Hess with the second.
Absolutely.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Have a good day.